So this is the first piece in the show. It's actually one of my favorites because when I first saw it, it made me think of anime with the eyes.
Sure. No, it's fine. The piece is called Poto Mita. The Poto Mita is, me myself, I'm Haitian, and I actually had a residency at the Haiti Culture Exchange in 2025. And part of my residency was I'm Haitian American. How do Haitian Americans, how do we interact with, or how do we come to, affront with Haitian spirituality, Haitian voodoo, Haitian rising, and things of these nature. And when I started to interview individuals, practitioners, people like myself that weren't practitioners but were learning more about it, one of the first things I learned about was the Poto Mita. And the Poto Mita is this pillar that sits at the center of each ceremony, and the practitioners would basically dance around the Poto Mita. But when I started reading about the Poto Mita, I saw that it was, and I also went to some temples, I saw that they had these colorful scars wrapped around them, and each one of the scars represented a different loa. Loas are deities, similar to the Yoruba with the Orishas. Actually, some of the Orishas are loas within Haitian spirituality. But when I started to read about the loas, the book that I was reading anyways focused on their eyes, and all of them had very distinctive eyes. When you look at Urzuli Freda here on the top, she had very feminine, very loving eyes. When you read about Urzuli Dantor, she had these blood red eyes, or whatever, very angry but very powerful as well. When you read about Ogu, he had these kind of very kingly, kind of very determined, really stately eyes. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show these eyes piercing through these scars, looking down at the people within the ceremony, because as a lot of people know, during these ceremonies, individuals sometimes get mounted by these laws. So these deities are looking down at people participating within the ceremony. However, what's really interesting about this piece is that you're basically looking through a portal. You're looking through a fire portal. This fire works as a liminal space. And typically on a Poto Mita is a yellow scarf as well. However, you don't see the yellow scarf present, but if you look at the border of this portal, you'll notice that there's a yellow border. And what I'm basically doing to the viewer as they're looking at this scarf, I'm giving the viewer the perspective of a loa looking into a ceremony. So similar to how these eyes are looking through a rectangular frame, you as well are looking through a rectangular frame as the loa that's represented by the yellow scarf.
Wow, I was reading in the press release that a lot of your work for this exhibit, Forces, takes from Haitian spirituality as well as Yoruba spirituality. And you talked about, please correct my pronunciation, I got you. But it was the Urzuli Denali?
Urzuli Dantor. When I first learned about Bois Kaima, which is basically the spiritual ceremony that started off the Haitian Revolution. Exactly. And then when I read about the spirit that they actually called upon, that actually got things cracking, her name was Urzuli Dantor. One, I was like, oh, it was a woman deity. It was a feminine energy that they brought.
I love that.
So this feminine energy ain't no joke. She's
the matriarch.
She's literally the matriarch. She protects women and children. That's literally what she is about.
And that's her at the top with the pink?
No, this is actually her right here with the red eyes.
Oh, with the red eyes.
So they call her Urzuli Dantor Jeu Rouge, and Jeu Rouge means red eyes. But her eyes are extremely fierce. She is similar to how I can think about with Urzuli Dantor, a very, very powerful feminine force that was called upon to start the Haitian Revolution.
I love that. Honestly, you made me do my own research because last time I was let me actually Google a lot of this. I am Nigerian, I'm not Yoruba though, I'm Igbo. So a lot of the Yoruba deities are popular in main culture, like Oshun. And it just made me want to study my own heritage, because a lot of the Igbo culture is not as mainstream as Yoruba culture. But I love how you try to take on both diasporas with this by merging the both Haitian and Yoruba spirituality. And I was also reading about, oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess the name up. Ogua. It was a spirituality that you yourself studied, and it inspired you to use the fire element within your work.
100%. No. So me, myself, in 2022, I actually got asked to play on an off-Broadway play. I got asked to play the Yoruba deity Shango. And I had already learned, I already knew about Shango, but this was the first time where I actually had to dive in and literally transform into this energy. And as you know, Shango, he's the deity over fire, thunder, a very like judgment. People, when I read about him, he's viewed as like a lawyer in terms of his people who are his practitioners. But I just learned a lot about him. So it wasn't until maybe like when I was in my Haiti cultural exchange residency and I started to do interviews, as I learned that there was a synchronicity between the Ogu, which is one of the laws in Haitian spirituality, and Shango, that was called Ogu Shango. So obviously I was very interested after like playing Shango in 2022.
Almost like you became him in a way.
Exactly. It was a really interesting one. It was a crazy experience. I won't go into the details of like just how powerful it was to actually play such a very prime entity, a deity that Shango is. But once I learned that it was a component of Shango within Haitian spirituality, Haitian voodoo, I was like, oh, this is very interesting. So it prompted me to not only create these firewalls or whatever, which actually there's a lot going on within it. I'm from a really small town called Belgrade, Florida, in South Florida. In my hometown, they actually, in order for most of the 50% of the sugar that we consume in America comes from my hometown. So it's a place full of sugarcane fields. It's a town of 16,000 people. But in order for them to harvest the sugarcane, they need to set the fields on fire. So when I was a little kid, when we would be riding on the school bus, when we'd be playing on the basketball court, and I'd just look outside my window, you just see these fields of fire. And we thought it was normal because we know this is what we were born in. So that's how they actually harvest the sugar. They have to set the fields on fire. So in order for me to create this texture that you're seeing, I actually am putting a certain amount of sugar within the paint, within the acrylic paint, along with molding paste, along with acrylic gel. But sugar plays a component in how I actually create this texture.
Is that how you thicken it?
Exactly.
I was going to ask you, like, how did you get it to look so thick and almost 3D?
Yep.
And I also noticed is that you don't use red when you make the color for fire. It's just variations of brown and yellows. But far away, it looks red. You can feel it.
No, thank you. That's very interesting. Definitely creating these took a lot of me just observing fire. Like, how do you like capture fire? Because one thing I want to do with the texture, I wanted to capture that kinetic energy that you see. Because fire is an element that's constantly in motion. It's constantly flickering. It's never standing still. But how are you able to? How I wanted to be able to capture its stillness, but still have that kinetic energy that you always see with fire. So I think really adding this texture was I was able to do that. But to your point about the red, like when I was observing photos of fire, when I would like see fires and things of that nature, I noticed that, it ain't red in here.
Yeah.
Like, there's actually like no red in there at all. And we always associate red with fire. So yeah, this is really a result of me observing, analyzing, literally like studying like fire for a little more than over a year and a half.
I love that. Okay, this piece honestly is your smallest work in the exhibit.
Yes.
What inspired you to put an inanimate object like this at the center?
For sure. But to your point of it being the smallest piece, it is the smallest piece, but it's a centerpiece. But I found it really interesting, and I must give credit to the curator, Jesse Firestone, who had the idea of like placing the piece at the center it's a 2 foot by 2 foot piece, and it's standing in the middle of these 8 foot by 7 foot pieces. However, even though it is a lot smaller than other pieces, it holds its ground. It like has a presence almost as heavy, almost as loud as these much larger pieces. And I really think that's a really great symbolization to what this piece represents. So Pearl of the Antilles, when Haiti was a French colony, the French referred to Haiti as the Pearl of the Antilles because it was this small country, this small colony more so, that they were harvesting a lot of their resources from, as far as the sugar, as far as the coffee, the amount of money that the French Empire was able to attain was a reason why they have a lot of the wealth that they have today. When I went to Paris for the first time back this past September, I really saw for myself like just the grandeur and just the like
beautiful.
Yes, and a lot of that money that the empire got was from like one of their main colonies was Haiti. Haiti was actually their premier colony at the time when they were able to acquire a lot of that wealth. So what I really think is important about this piece is that it represents the colony of at the time it was called Saint Domingue, but it represents like just the that pearl that it represented for the French colony, but that pearl revolting and turning into what the Haitian Revolution ultimately turned into. So I really like how the fire is somewhat
almost like engulfing it. I was going to ask you, that was intentional.
Exactly. The fire is somewhat engulfing it, and at the same time, it almost looks like it's exuding it at the same time from the actual pearl. And what I wanted to do with the pearl was have it sit in a French jewelry box, just to kind of say, just to show that parallel between that Haiti being a French colony and that pearl sitting in that jewelry box.
Wow. I think that actually is a great piece of advice for the curating, for the curation. It does stand alone, and unlike its counterparts, it takes up the most space, and yet it is the smallest. But no, it shines on its own. I think this one definitely made me stop and stare a little bit longer, just because I was curious.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of my favorites for sure. As far as just the way it's able to hold its ground, hold its ground still. It speaks a lot about Haiti being, a small country, Haiti, but it taking down one of the greatest empires, arguably the greatest general of all time, according to these books, Napoleon. He actually lost against Haiti in terms of Dessalines, the emperor of Haiti at the time. This one is called La Fumée, and La Fumée in Creole is smoke.
Smoke. This one is for sure the centerpiece of the entire exhibit. I think it just catches your attention and it makes you look and stare and question. There's a rooster, there's palm trees, there's a storm going on in the background. You kind of see this repeating itself from the Potomito. And yeah, it just really captures you. It makes you wonder and it makes you question. And during the exhibit, I felt like this was the one that everyone kind of gathered around.
I know that as well.
I don't know if it's just the feng shui of where it sits in the room, but it kind of does just take up so much attention, and it does. And also like the flames, like nothing is interrupting. I'm looking, it's from like top to bottom, unlike Potomito where you kind of have some black space still. Like this entire piece is engulfed in the flames.
To your point about the flames, so I've been creating this flame technique since 2022, and I've made roughly 12 different image pieces of the flame. So because this one came like after the Potomito piece, I had a better understanding of how to create the flames. And we'll see with the next piece that we'll talk about, Oracle. Oracle is the latest like fire technique that I've done. And you can do all the pieces, basically you can see the progression of me figuring out. This is like exactly, this is a new technique that taught me. I literally had to figure it out. But with this one, I was able to like keep its vibrancy, the vibrancy of the colors, and like also the technique of like how exactly I wanted it to really have that fire texture more so.
It's so funny because the day of the exhibit, I was in here sweating.
Oh my God, it was so hot.
It is burning hot, and someone was like, "Yeah, the work is alive. It's like if you can feel the flames coming off." And I was like, you know what?
It's kind of crazy.
That was a very beautiful way to put that. You could feel the heat coming off of the work. This one on your page, and you showcased it at another exhibit you did it. You had an actual like altar in front of it. And then I noticed, I was like, oh wait, did he recreate that here?
So this one was, the altar was painted first, but I wanted to create the altar in front of it as well, because similar to the Potomito piece, as far as these 8-foot tall pieces, I wanted them to really come off as a portal. So the thing about the laws, the voodoo deities that we speak about, during the ceremonies, when you really read about them and you ask practitioners, they're coming from a different dimension, right? This dimension is like slightly more surreal and altered than wherever they're coming from. So what I want to do when viewers are looking at this, I want them to get the perspective of the law looking within a different dimension. So we're currently within this dimension, and you're looking into a different dimension. That's why you can see these fruits. They obviously they look like fruits that you can somewhat look familiar, but there's a difference with it. It's hard to pinpoint and identify exactly what they are. What I'm doing here is I'm giving the viewer a look through this portal, a look through this liminal space, which is this fire, and you're actually looking within a different dimension. You're looking at a ceremony where they're calling upon for you to be a part of this ceremony. You as the law they're asking for you to come into this ceremony that they've set up. So when you were looking at the piece the image that you're referring to online, where there was basically an altar in the front, that was basically like you walking through a door. However, there's another door that you can walk through as well.
Okay, we are at the last piece of the exhibit, Oracle. This one, I wish I had more time to sit and stare at. I think the positioning of it made it hard to kind of stand in this walkway during the exhibit, but it definitely was the one I was most curious about, just because it has a subject, and it's a very prominent subject. Is this you?
So that's the really interesting part. I would say the inception of this piece, when I first got the vision to create it, I always knew, because it's called Oracle, and when I was doing my studies and having the interviews I was having for the Haiti Culture Exchange, I was running into a lot of these Haitian priestesses, and who are referred to as mambos. These individuals, they just contain a lot of knowledge. I wanted to create a piece that somewhat signified them. However, the legs here were supposed to originally portray a woman standing grounded within the grass. But as I was completing it, I was like, it would be really interesting if it was a neutral gender. Like, you couldn't really tell if it was feminine or masculine. It was kind of like a synchronization of both situations. So I kind of leave it open to interpretation as far as like, is this individual feminine or masculine? What I do find interesting, which I didn't really notice until I kind of finished the piece, is that it kind of gives off that Nick Cave. I don't know if you're familiar with his sound suits. As I was, what I wanted to also do as far as the technique of this piece, like I said before, it is the latest piece in this series where I was able to, I would say, mature the fire technique a little more, and you can tell even by the control of how the flames are going. Because at this time I had a better understanding of what palette knife to utilize, how much of the sugar should I be adding into the mixture with the acrylic and the molding paste. Literally, you can like literally see the flames like coming off of, and this was like literally the last application that I utilized. You can literally see the flames coming off of the canvas.
Such a great detail. I noticed that.
Yeah, it was at this moment I was like, okay, I have a higher understanding of like how to make it really look like an inferno on the flame, so give it a lot more texture and body. But as far as the portal aspect of the piece and why it is spinning around, during my residency, I learned about this very interesting philosophy from a Haitian philosopher and artist. His name was Frank Etienne. Unfortunately, he died February last year. But him and 3 other artists in the 1960s, they came up with this philosophy called spiralism. And it was a really interesting philosophy in the sense of like, they noticed that in terms of DNA, in terms of when you look at the cosmos and the galaxies and things of that nature, everything, you would always notice spirals in
like
nature.
The Fibonacci sequence.
That's literally like perfect example. You will always see these spirals, and they applied that observation to like, at the time in Haiti was going through a lot of political turmoil, and they applied that to like in everything within reality and in society and everything. There, chaos is present. Chaos in these spirals. Chaos can work in your favor, and it can also work against you, was one of the things that they kind of pointed out in spiralism. So I wanted to also I wanted this to also be a piece that like referenced spiralism as well, in the sense of like, you would always just notice in the macro, you would notice like the galaxies or spirals. In the micro, you would notice the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to show like this figure. At the time, I thought it would be a feminine, but this figure is representation of the cosmos, is representation of the breakdown of the cells as far as DNA. Like this is the universe, basically. Which I saw and I recognized as I was holding a lot of interviews with different mambos, different priestesses and things of that nature during my residency.
Hey, I love that. Love that. So it took almost a year for everything to get discussed and settled, and now going into April of 2026, you're here at the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts. Doing a solo.
Nah, that whole situation really showed me that, you know, a lot of these, when it comes to dealing with, you know, a gallery or dealing with a curator, a relationship needs to be established, grow, and I think that really helps out ultimately with the quality of the show that is presented.
That is so true. I think curation is like the first step to a great show.